This is Word on the Reef, where marine science meets adventure. Join Tanya Murphy and Brett Goodban as we plunge into the wonders of the Great Barrier Reef and explore the mysteries beneath the waves. Good morning and welcome to Word on the Reef. I'm your host, diver and marine conservationist Tanya Murphy, and joining me as always is Cairns Aquarium's marine educator and fish whisperer, Brett Goodban.
Good morning, how are you?
Good morning. Now, Brett, I'm super excited because today we are going to be finishing off part 2 of our interview with marine biologist and diving veteran Steve Sinclair, where we are revealing Australia's top 50 dive sites. Now, Steve is the absolute best authority to talk to on this topic because he has been diving since 1972. He was once named Australia's National Scuba Dive Champion and also broke a world record for the longest cave dive. He's dived all over the country, has run many dive centres and written many books, and he has now compiled the authoritative list of Australia's top 50 dive sites. And now he's running a competition called the Great Australian Dive Challenge. It raises money for the Australian Marine Conservation Society, and with thousands of dollars worth of prizes, including liveaboard cruises on the Great Barrier Reef up for grabs, you won't want to miss it. All you have to do to enter is to do at least one of the dives off the top 50 list at 50greatdives.com. There's a prize for whoever does the most dive sites off the top 50 list, but even if you only do one of the dive sites off the list, you still go in the draw to win amazing prizes as well. Now, last week we talked about the top dive sites of the Great Barrier Reef, as well as Australia's top sites to dive and snorkel with turtles, sharks, dolphins and seals. Today we're going to be talking about the best places in Australia to dive with whales, sea dragons, giant cuttlefish, kelp, sinkholes, wrecks, submarines, and make sure you listen right to the end to find out Steve's ultimate best dive site of Australia of all time.
Oh no, there goes our bank account.
Yeah. Now be assured this list has been curated to include sites for snorkelers and beginners as well as advanced divers, and includes sites that are more remote and a bit more exclusive to access, as well as those which can be reached with a simple, affordable day trip near the mainland. So there is something here for everyone. So
covers everybody.
Yeah, so get your bucket lists out, everyone, and get ready. Okay, so Steve, let's dive in. So we talked about Ningaloo Reef in Western Australia being the best place to see whale sharks, but I saw you've also got it as the top place to see migrating humpbacks.
Yeah, there's something like 40,000 humpback whales in West Australia at one time of the year when they're coming through, which is massive because the numbers were down to...
It was 1982 when the whale referendum came, there was 500 up the Queensland coast, but now it's 35,000.
And it's fantastic to see something recover so well.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yep.
Yeah, and it's not a rare sight anymore to see a whale, which is great. It's a common sight as it used to be.
Yeah, so I, on the show a couple of weeks ago, talked about how I just went whale watching off of Redcliffe in Brisbane recently and saw so many whales, and they were not afraid, and they swam right up to the boat and did a little spy hop out of the water to say hello and see us. So there are humpback whales in various locations around Australia. I do know one or two people who have actually had one come up to them on the Great Barrier Reef, but because it is such a big spread out area, we usually just see them from the boat. We don't usually have them coming up to us in the water. But how much chance do you think there is in Western Australia of one coming up to you while you're snorkeling or diving, Steve?
Well, they've got permits. They go out there. They guarantee them at the right time of the year.
Yep.
And you're allowed to get in the water?
And you're allowed to swim with them.
Wow.
Yeah, South Coast WA and Albany, Esperance.
I just noted there that the population's recovered to about 135,000 now.
Just in the whole world? Or?
Yeah, world.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I mentioned that today in my Coral Sea show at the aquarium, the education shows, and it's a big message that I leave them at the end, because it's proof that if we stick the boot in and we protect these animals, that this is what can happen.
Yeah.
Because when you say to them the numbers drop to 500, their faces sink, and then you go, but now we're looking at over 40,000 migrating up the coast. They're like, what?
Yeah,
it's like,
and
it's beautiful.
Of course, that didn't happen by accident. It happened because of mass protest and people saying save the whales.
Yep,
and
enough's enough.
And that resulted in the change required to stop whaling being allowed in Australian waters. And other places as well. Yep. And interesting side fact, I believe, Brett, you started as a primary school kid giving tours on Western Australia.
Yeah, I grew up about as far away from Cairns as you can get and stay in the same country, in Albany on the west coast. Oh. My mum used to run the whaling station down there, and we used to live down on the property, and we were doing...
After it was no longer
After it was all gone,
station.
yeah. And I was doing educational tours when I was a kid.
It's pretty funny that you're doing the educational tours at the Cairns Aquarium now, and as a kid you were giving people whale tours. It's just, that's your dream.
And that's where all my love of sharks and everything came from, because the great whites are huge down there.
Yeah.
And we used to surf every day, and we'd pretty much see one every day, and we used to joke that we always needed 5 friends with us because the odds were less.
Yeah, and they only stopped hunting whales in the 70s.
Yeah, it was 1962, I think the Albany whaling station shut down.
Yeah.
I think that they topped over 16,000 whales that they'd killed from there. And then the southern right whale, well, we know why it's called that. That was awful, because that was the right whale to hunt for its quality of oil, which is...
They used to float when they killed them.
Yeah. We had the old chains ship up on dry dock that people could come and have a look at. And it was a really emotional tour for people.
Yeah. Well, did you know Les Bale in Albany?
Yep.
Yeah, he sunk the Chains 3. The first shipwreck in Australia sunk for divers.
Princess Royal Harbour?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yep.
Is that a shipwreck that's on your top 50 list?
That's in the wreck list, yep. So if you go to Albany, Brett's old homeland, you've got the Chains 3, the whale chaser.
Yep.
And you've got HMAS Perth.
Yeah, HMAS Perth was scuttled off there too as a wreck dive,
And amazing offshore island diving too. Brilliant diving.
It's gorgeous, that coastline.
Yep.
And so moving into South Australia, there's the sea dragons and the giant cuttlefish aggregation. Yes,
South Australia is a very lucky place. And not many people know just how wonderful South Australia is. When I finished my uni degree back in 1974, my girlfriend and I drove our van up to Airlie Beach to do a Barrier Reef dive tour. Then after that, we both migrated to Perth. And on the way, we dived the coast, and I was lucky enough to dive a place called Edithburgh Jetty.
Yep.
And Edithburgh Jetty is a 50-grade dive because I just was stunned by the colour that was there. It was just amazing, the diversity. And we also dived a place called Rapid Bay Jetty. And Rapid Bay Jetty would be what you would call the sea dragon capital of the world.
Wow.
They have leafy sea dragons there, which are unbelievably exquisite animals, and they have the weedy sea dragon.
They have both.
They have both.
Wow.
And you'll get weedy sea dragons off Sydney, you'll get them around Melbourne, you'll get them around Perth. The leafy sea dragon, you'll get them off Esperance. I remember going out with my mate Peter Hudson. I visited him in Esperance one day. I said, I've got to go out in the boat tonight, Steve. I said, oh, yeah. And this is going back to early 1990s. He said, what are you doing? I said, I've got a permit to get 2 leafy sea dragons. Oh, really? So he had a permit from a Japanese museum to get 2 leafy sea dragons. And this is 1990. He was paid $15,000 each for them.
Wow. It'd be like $1 million now or something.
They are so rare and they're so exquisite, and they're very hard to keep. They're very particular with what they eat when they're in captivity. They're pipefish, seahorses. So the males bear the burden of carrying the eggs and the hatchlings.
When the food just goes straight through.
Yeah, and
they need a lot of looking
they're just
after.
Wonderful. They're hard to spot. You need a good eye, or you have a guide.
Yeah, so for any listeners who aren't familiar, a sea dragon is related to a seahorse, but it's covered in leaf-like appendages which make it blend in with the seaweed and kelp, right? Yeah,
and they're only about a foot at the largest. They're tiny, they're exquisite, they're delicate, hard to find, but when you find them, they just blow your mind.
Yeah.
They are fantastic. And then you've got the cuttlefish at the top of the Spencer Gulf there. The cuttlefish come into Whyalla every year to breed in winter. So you won't get away with your board shorts and T-shirt.
No, mate, no.
Because the water's about 10 degrees.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
But you can go out there on snorkel. It's a snorkel event. And these giant cuttlefish, which are unique to Australia, go through all their mating procedures and they mate. And then once they've mated and laid their eggs, they die. They only live for about 8 to 12 months. And you will find them migrating up to Jervis Bay, New South Wales. They'll migrate up to Sydney. Magic Point off Sydney has got giant cuttlefish. and they're just an amazing animal. You watch them on the bottom, their ability to change colour and to change the texture of their skin is just got to be seen to be believed.
Yes, Stephen Andrews from the Great Southern Reef Foundation was on our show a few weeks back. He actually, when we interviewed him, he was leaving that day to go and film and photograph giant cuttlefish, and we were very jealous.
Yeah.
So when you do go there, there's about 100,000 of them aggregate.
Whoa.
Now, they're another species that were hunted for bait for commercial fishermen.
Oh, it's just...
And they dropped their numbers quite significantly, and they're starting to come back again. But still a delicate thing. I just get back to Edithburgh Jetty. You've had that recent algal bloom.
Yes, we've covered that extensively.
The sad thing is that Edithburgh Jetty, if you go to the website, you see all these wonderful photos of beautiful colour, invertebrate life. That's been decimated, but... The good thing about southern water, as opposed to northern water is colder, therefore it'll hold more oxygen. It gets clean, nutrient-rich water from the south, and we find that our environment recovers a lot quicker from devastation than the coral reef environment.
Okay. Well, I hope you're right. I mean, there's been tens of thousands of marine life, from dolphins and great white sharks all the way to fish, octopus, and of course the beautiful sea dragons. Tens of thousands have washed up dead on the shores of South Australia because of this devastating algal bloom, which is
horrific.
Yeah, which is following on from a marine heat wave where the sea surface temperatures in South Australia, particularly the Spencer Gulf, were up to 2 degrees above average in summer, so late summer, February, March this year. And so I guess it's important to continue to promote the dive sites in South Australia which have not been impacted by the algal bloom. It is a huge bloom, but South Australia has a big coastline, and it's really important that we continue to support those tourism businesses and seeing the amazing things that there are to see. And from what we got from Stefan, there still was a giant cuttlefish aggregation this winter, so that is definitely on my bucket list. So now that we are on the topic of climate impacts, let's talk about a few more of the sites, because as you mentioned, you first started this list of the top 50 dive sites in Australia back in the 90s. But since then, not only South Australia, which you just mentioned, but some other top dive sites in Australia have sadly been impacted by the effects of climate change. Can you tell us about any others?
Yeah, when I was diving in the late 1980s, early 1990s, I went to Bicheno on the northeast coast of Tasmania and just dived this fantastic giant kelp forest. It was sensational. I mean, the fronds were probably 20, 25 metres long. The kelp was growing a metre a day.
Wow.
A metre a day?
Yeah.
It's fantastic carbon sequestration as well, because it takes in carbon.
And they were harvesting it from the bottom. This is anecdotal, and they were harvesting it for the alginates. And the cray fishermen noticed that there was a drop in crayfish catch when they were harvesting the kelp. And there's a life cycle in the crayfish they're not sure of, but when it goes from its larval open ocean stage, they were thinking that the little crayfish would use the kelp forest to get to the bottom.
Okay.
So when they harvested the kelp, there was no way known for the little crayfish to get to the bottom. So they woke up to that, then they realised because the kelp grows about a metre a day, we'll just go out every day and take the top metre. Then the crayfish catch came up again.
It worked. Okay, good.
So that's anecdotal. So we need some research on that. But anyway, when it came time to write the 50 Great Dives, I had to have the giant kelp forest in it, because it's, if you could imagine the rainforest you've got up here behind Cairns, if you could swim through it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You just imagine. You've got these tall trees and there's stuff everywhere. There's life everywhere on the bottom. Floating anemones, which are really beautiful. Sea dragons, sea stars.
Oh, there's so many more places.
So I rang up my mate at Bicheno Dives and I said, I'm writing up 50 Great Dives. Tell me about the kelp forest. He goes, what kelp forest? I said, pardon me? He said, what kelp forest? I said, what do you mean, what kelp forest? He said, it's gone. It disappeared 5 years ago.
Oh my God.
I said, you've got to be kidding.
When was this?
This was 10 years ago. And I dived it in the early 90s, as I said. Got beautiful photographs. So I rang Karen at Eagle Hawk Dive Centre and said, Karen, you got kelp forest down there? She said, got one bit of kelp forest left. And she's a marine biologist. I said, what's the story? She said, well, it's gone. I said, what do you mean? It's gone too? She said, yeah. The water temperatures have changed about 1.5 degrees, and the macrocystis kelp, the giant kelp, hasn't been able to sustain it. And what they've got now is this warm water has come down the east coast into Tasmania, and it's brought down with it sea urchins.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they think what's happening is the kelp tries to grow back, the sea urchins are trimming it before it gets a chance to take hold again. They are trying to revegetate it with a strain that's a bit temperature resistant and having some success with it. I know they're doing the same thing in Sydney too with another species of kelp.
Yeah, so it is the urchins that are migrating into the area and eating too much kelp, but it is also the direct impacts of heat, which are actually just burning the kelp away.
Yeah. So I've left it in as a 50 grade dive. If you go to try to do the giant kelp forest, you might not see any giant kelp, but it might just drive the point home just what this atmospheric carbon dioxide's doing to our planet.
Yeah, if there's any listeners out there who don't believe in climate change, definitely go and dive the kelp forest, see what you find.
Yeah,
we had
in your head, it would be perfect.
We had a giant kelp forest in Victoria. It disappeared in the early 80s. And it was so big, it was on the sea charts as a hazard to navigation. And that just disappeared overnight. And that was probably the first sign. And we didn't even think about it.
When did it disappear?
Early 1980s.
That's ages ago.
Yeah, I know.
It's very, very sensitive then.
Yeah, very sensitive.
This is the thing, like, it's only now after 6 mass coral bleaching events on the Great Barrier Reef in 9 years and thousands of marine life washing up dead on the coast of South Australia. It's gotten to this point before it's extreme enough that it starts to make headlines. And yet these kelp have been disappearing since the 80s and barely even registering. It's like the warning signs have been there for a long time. We've had well beyond enough time to act, and it's pretty disappointing, the slowness to act of our governments and industries.
Could you imagine what they would say if 95% of the tropical rainforest here disappeared overnight? That's the analogy. It's all gone. What happened?
Yep.
It's gone.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Daintree. Wait a minute.
Yeah, so it's pretty sad. And the sad thing is, Pete and I, we talked about this in a plane coming up this morning. We both did our science degrees together. And I asked him a question. I said, Pete, do you remember talking about greenhouse gases when you did your basic science degree? He said, yeah, I did. I said, yeah, I'm sure we did. So in 71, 72, when we were doing our first science degree, we were talking about greenhouse gases then.
Yeah.
And I know Maggie Thatcher was a Prime Minister of England. She was a scientist and she was trying to do something about it as well. But being a Conservative government, it's pretty hard to convince all the power brokers to say, hang on.
Yeah.
But anyway, when I do speak to people that don't understand what carbon dioxide's doing, I say to them, how does your body feel when you're 1 degree, when your core temperature's up 1 degree, like you've got a flu fever? How do you feel?
Yeah, dreadful.
Oh, I feel lousy. I said, well, maybe that's what the ocean's feeling at the moment too.
It's true.
Because it's all integrated.
Yep.
The ocean looks after itself, and if it's out of balance...
Well, as one of my previous guests, Malachi Johnson, a traditional owner, said, the reef is our lifeblood. So when your blood temperature gets 1 degree above average, you've got problems. And when the sea surface temperature, well, it's now 2 degrees above average. But as Steve said, scientists have known about climate change. They were teaching it to you in the 70s. Actually, they've known about it since even before that. And there's been this concerted cover-up from the fossil fuel industry, basically, with all their millions that they can spend on marketing campaigns. And that's what we're up against. So it's very sad to hear about those kelp forests. You know, the fact that I have never even had the chance to dive a kelp forest.
No, me either.
And that's the sad thing, that you won't get the chance for a long, long while, if ever.
We need to let that sink in. Let's talk a little bit about what I think might be one of the strangest locations for a dive in Australia, if not the world. For any listeners who haven't heard of the Nullarbor Plain, comes from the Latin null arbor, which means no trees. So it's literally a huge desert, nearly 200,000 square kilometres in size. It's not the sort of place that I would have thought you could find one of Australia's top 50 dives.
Yeah, I put that in there because on Margaret's and my road trip, when we were going across the Nullarbor, we read an article in one of the diving magazines about Wee Bubby Cave, which is near Eucla.
Yep.
And I said to Margaret, I think we should stop here and have a look. And all the caves in Nullarbor are about 300 feet or 100 metres below the surface of Nullarbor in a dough line, a rock cavity. And there was a ladder there. So we grabbed our mast, snorkel fins and a torch, and we went down the ladder. And the water was so clear, I didn't see the water until I was knee deep in it.
Body temperature.
Crystal clear.
Yeah.
And
beautiful.
we had a snorkel. It was a fantastic snorkel. On my way back to Melbourne, I had a really good scuba dive there. A word of warning, though, going down the dough lines to these caves is very hazardous because it's sandstone, it's not stable. It's basically like traversing a cliff to get down. They've taken the ladder away as far as I know now. It's got to the stage where I probably might discourage people from going there.
So there's no dive centre or lookouts. There's no lifeguards.
You've got to be totally self-sufficient.
Yep.
And I suppose the nearest hospital is in Perth or something.
Well,
Kalgoorlie.
Yeah. Well, you got the RFDA can land on the highway.
But I was lucky enough to participate in a really big dive in a cave called Cocklebiddy Cave. We did a world record penetration there back in 1977.
You got a world record.
Yeah,
wow.
And we're a team and we did that. And we built a sled which held, I think it was 27 cylinders. And we had 3 cylinders on each diver's back to go in, because it was about 1 kilometre in. And when you went down and you're 40 feet deep under this tunnel, like a railroad tunnel, full of crystal clear water, perfectly due north, and then you get about 1 kilometre, kilometre and a half in, and the roof of the cave is collapsed. And it's collapsed on itself, and there's just these huge slabs of sandstone. You think, oh, I hope we don't cause the next one to fall.
Or with your bubbles, yeah.
And, of course, we had to climb over that rock pile with all the tanks for the world record to be broken.
What was the record for? The deepest or the longest?
Cave penetration.
Wow.
How far in were you?
2.5 kilometres we got.
Wow, and is that still in existence today?
A French team went back and they broke it using underwater propulsion vehicles. And we
cheating.
Cheaters. Yeah, cheating. We at least swam it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I remember I worked out I was probably the 5th person to be at this rock pile ever. And I remember on top of the sandstone there was these drops of blood. Someone must have cut themselves on a previous trip. And on each drop of blood was this beautiful fungus growing, about 1 centimetre high. Perfect. I'll never forget it.
Wow.
But yeah, so the Nullarbor is just, underneath it is just caves everywhere.
Yeah, it's incredible.
But please don't think you just go over there and do what I did when I was young and foolish. We're probably lucky. You need to have the specialist equipment, the specialist training.
All right. Well, we'll say that one's on there for interest's sake then. It does sound a bit rough. I'm from Western Australia, but I just had to look up on Google Maps to figure out where Eucla is, which you said is the closest town to this cave dive that you mentioned. And Eucla is right on the border of Western Australia and South Australia. It is 15 hours drive from Perth in the middle of nowhere.
It's right at Border Village, isn't it?
Yeah, well, Eucla's, I think, just
right on it.
Just a camping ground and a station.
Yeah, it's the middle of nowhere.
Sejuna would be the nearest where you probably get medical help.
I can see that it's close to the ocean, maybe.
It is.
I can't see the scale.
It's right on it.
So is the cave dive in the ocean?
No, the cave dive's in fresh water.
Yeah, okay.
It's sort of brackish, but it's crystal clear. Unbelievably clear.
Yeah, I mean, most of the average radio listeners out there, the idea of plunging into a gaping hole in the ground is probably not that appealing to them anyway, but there's some danger mice out there who will be like, right, where is this place? We need to find it. But speaking of inland dives, let's talk again about the potential impacts of climate change, because you were mentioning another cave dive in Piccaninny Ponds, is it?
Piccaninny Ponds in South Australia, Mount Gambier. Again, limestone coast, it's riddled with caves. Under the town of Mount Gambier itself, there's cave dives. And again, Pete and I were talking about that. We saw some footage taken of Piccaninny Ponds last year. It was gut-wrenching. It was just tragic to see it. Again, when we dived it in the mid-70s, it was crystal clear water, beautiful plant curtain when you went over the first lake into the actual chasm. That started to disappear probably 30 years ago. There's a lot of runoff from farms.
So it's not just climate, it's nutrients, fertiliser.
Yeah, and also the farmers have got permission to take water out of the water table. That goes up and down. And Pete and I had that discussion on the plane today about the damage he's dived other caves where he said the water table does come back to the same depth and goes back down. And I made the comment, but those caves aren't exposed to the environment as much as Ewan's ponds and Piccaninny ponds is. Maybe there's an environmental factor there because once the water level drops, it just changes the ecology around the lake. But certainly needs to be investigated, and it's another place I just really, really hope that it comes back to somewhere like it used to be. I hope it's not a kelp forest story. Both those locations, Ewan Ponds and Piccaninny Ponds, are fantastic snorkel dive sites.
Okay, great.
But you need a permit from the South Australian parks.
Oh, okay.
You just can't go there willy-nilly.
Yeah, just trying to picture it. So these ponds are just in the middle of farmers' paddocks, basically, aren't they?
Yeah. Ewan's Ponds, it's 3 ponds and connected to the sea by a channel. You can, in fact, snorkel through the 3 ponds and all the way to the ocean. Huh. Piccaninny Ponds has channels to the sea. They're a bit harder to navigate. And the other one, which is my 50th great dive, you'll see in the introduction, is my favourite dive, is the Shaft. It's a hole in a farmer's paddock, about 3/4 of a metre in diameter.
Less than 3 feet for our international listeners.
I try to, okay. And then you drop down a rope ladder to what's called a rock pile, about 9-10 metres below the opening. So, again, specialist equipment. And then you go down in the water from the rock pile, and when you get from this 1/2 metre hole, which is just enough for a man to get through, from there, when you get down to 40 metres of depth, 40 metres below that, it's as big as a football oval.
Wow.
It just opens up like an upside-down
funnel
mushroom. And sadly, there's been some fatalities there in the 70s. And then they call it the Shaft because at the right time of the day, the sun will come over and the rays will go through that little hole in the paddock.
Oh, magical.
And you see this beautiful, and the photo on the website's amazing, thanks to Liz Rogers. And the reason the rock pile's there is the farmer was optimistic enough to think he could fill the hole. And that rock pile's just from the farmer trying to fill the hole because his cattle kept disappearing.
Are there dead cow bones down there?
Oh, yeah, but at the end of the day, it's just fascinating that you've got this little hole in the paddock which opens up into such a magnificent area.
That's pretty wild.
Mount Gambier's like that, it's just littered. So that's called a sinkhole.
Yeah.
Whereas a cave's sort of something where you swim in and you don't have direct
Geez, would you be worried about, I mean, is that still there?
Yeah.
Like the top of it hasn't collapsed in or anything through erosion?
No, you need a cave diving sinkhole training with the Cave Divers Association of Australia.
Yeah, you need to get a permit.
Permission.
Yeah.
You need a permit. You've got to get landowner permission. But look, if you can go to the trouble, it's well worth it. Really well worth it.
I've just got this image in my head of some poor cow going to have a bit of a sniff and then come flying through that hole
Well, in the Nullarbor, you find
like
all
Alice
sorts
in Wonderland.
of...
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of holes.
All sorts of stuff, you know. It's amazing.
That reminds me of...
skeletons. In fact, a mate told me they found a human skeleton there 2 years ago.
In one of these sinkholes?
In one of the Nullarbor caves. And they've been trying to get them to do with carbon dating and DNA dating, but for some reason they don't want to do that. So they've retrieved the skeleton, but that's all they know about it.
Well, you can guarantee that the traditional owners would have had stories and their own beliefs and obviously as a water source as well, I suppose.
Yeah, the serpent, the rainbow serpent.
Yeah, but just to think some settler has come and cleared that land to make a farm with absolutely no idea that there's a giant cavernous hole underneath, and they're like, oh, there's a little bit of a puddle there, I'll just fill it up with rocks. Yeah, good luck, mate.
Was that how you originally worked out that it was bottomless? That these boulders just kept... You've been dumping them in there for 50 years and realised...
for years and gave up in the end.
This hole's not filling in.
Yes.
Something's happening.
Yes, there's something down there.
Yeah, the rocks keep coming back at me.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
All right, so freshwater cave diving in Australia. I've heard about people going all the way to Mexico to dive in the cenotes, which are the sinkholes in Mexico, but to think that we can just do it here on our own doorsteps, probably a little bit closer to get to.
And this is one of the reasons the 50 Great Dives was put together, because a lot of people know their backyard, but they don't know other people's backyards. And even this discussion we've had, it's just opening up stuff that...
It's opening up my wallet.
Yeah, well, that aside, but it doesn't all have to be expensive. There's lots of good snorkeling sites.
Oh, yeah. Staying close to home is actually saving carbon emissions. Australia's huge, so it's not exactly close to go to some of these sites, but it's closer than going to Mexico, that's for sure. I feel like we're almost at the point to wrap up with your top dive. Were there any other... We didn't talk about many of the wrecks. Were there any wrecks or other notable dives that you want to talk about before we go to your final top?
I mentioned Darwin Harbour.
This is the only one in Northern Territory, hey?
Yeah, Darwin Harbour's got about 80 shipwrecks.
Wow.
We had 2 Japanese attacks there in 1944. I think it was 44. And I've written up a dive on the Mauna Loa. Darwin Harbour's very tidal, has 10-metre tide, so you get very poor visibility. And because of the poor visibility, you get corals at depth of 20 metres that you don't see normally till 40 metres of water.
Right.
So these wrecks are encrusted with sea life that you would have to dive very deep to see in a normal circumstance. Not to mention the Harley-Davidson bikes.
Say what?
Harley-Davidson's on the wreck, yeah. There's all sorts of cannons and junk and stuff you see. And, of course, they had Cyclone Tracy, which contributed to the Booyah. So we got the Mauna Loa and the Booyah for the wreck challenge next year. Sadly, on the Booyah, there was a couple of lives lost. They were tied up. They went out to anchor but capsized during the cyclone. So Darwin Harbour, and just near Darwin, if you're ever up there, you've got Berry Springs for a snorkel dive. Warm, clear spring water.
Fresh water. Okay. No crocodiles?
Tortoises, no crocodiles. Oh, some say there are.
Well, everyone should be warned that most of the waters in Northern Territory have crocodiles.
Yes, so let's do a crocodile warning segment.
Yeah, don't just go jumping in left, right and centre. Make sure you only go to the designated safe spots.
And I'll make a mention about my home state, Victoria. In the First World War, the Royal Navy built 7 J-class submarines. The German U-boats were pretty quick boats, so they built these things to be quick. But that's about all they achieved. They were quick, but they were pretty useless. One of them was sunk by friendly fire in the North Sea. That left 6. And another one has 2 records for submarines that I believe are valid. It's the only submarine that's ever fired 2 torpedoes and hit 2 different ships.
Oh, that's a double whammy.
Yep, and it's the only submarine that's actually depth charged the submarine below it and survived. And you can dive on that submarine.
Wowza.
So 6 of them were given to Australia by the Royal Navy, and we got them. I think we had them for a year or 2 years. We realised they weren't much chop, so they scrapped them and scuttled them. And we have 4 of them that are really, really nice dives. I showed you that photo before of the conning tower. When you go down there, these submarines, they're 27 metres and 36 metres of water and 39 metres of water. The 36-metre sub is a deep dive sub, but when you shine your torch on it, it is absolutely bright yellow. Why is it bright yellow? It is covered in yellow zoanthids, which are like a little coral bottom.
So that's what the Beatles were looking at when they wrote their song Yellow Submarine.
Of course. Yes, absolutely. They're sitting on their keel. You can see the torpedo tubes. You can see the rudder. You can see the stabilisers and the conning towers, and they're really wonderful dives. And no, not many people know about them. So if you're going down to Victoria, buy a wetsuit, Brett.
Yeah, okay.
Put the wetsuit on. Go down in February when the water temperature is about 22. And you've got this East Australian current in with the 20, 30 metre visibility, and dive one of our yellow submarines. And call yourself Ringo.
All right, well, it's a deal then.
Now I'm going to have that song stuck in my head for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
We need to get ourselves a mobile studio, Tanya, so that we can go to these places and broadcast our show from these different sites.
And of course, the wreck's full of different stories of tragedies of navigation, loss of life.
Yeah.
And when I've selected a wreck to go on the wreck site, I've tried to find a wreck that's diveable for recreational divers. A lot of the wrecks are too deep for recreational diving on air. That presents problems for diving health and safety. So I've tried to keep them all what we call recreational dives on air, where you need either open water ticket, which is your basic one, advanced or deep diver. And I've tried to select wrecks that have got a pretty interesting backstory.
Yep.
And there's still something to see of those wrecks. There's, I think it's 8,000 wrecks in Australia, and we're still looking for 6,000 of them.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
The sea keeps many secrets.
She does.
Davy Jones's locker.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So I feel like it might be time finally for us to find out which dive site you consider to be the best in our whole country, in your opinion. Obviously, it's subjective. But, Steve, if you could only do one more dive in your life, what would it be? Drum roll, please.
Well, from all the diving I've done, I have to say I have to go home to Port Phillip Heads. In the middle of the bay, there is a wall which we call the Lonsdale Wall, It starts at 8 metres and goes down almost sheer to 50 metres, then to 90 metres.
Nice.
It's in fact the bed of the Yarra River.
Right.
6,000 years ago,
Before the
Port
sea
Phillip
level.
Bay didn't exist. The Yarra River used to go meandering down, and when you get down to the Heads area, it starts at Portsea Hole, goes across and cuts through.
And so to be clear, 10,000 years ago, sea levels were much lower.
Yep.
But between 6,000 and 10,000 years ago, the sea levels rose and it flooded this canyon, basically, of the Yarra River. And so you're diving down into an underwater Grand Canyon sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a good way. It's a Grand Canyon because it's on both sides the same. Mm-hmm. Starts a little bit deeper on the east, but basically it's a sheer wall, but it's full of undercuts. If you're going down a passage, imagine you can go into the bedroom and have a look. And the bedrooms are just full of life.
Wow.
Full of colour, full of fish.
Little New York
sea
City.
slugs, nudibranchs everywhere, sea spiders, all sorts of stuff. It's just fascinating. And on the west side, we call it Lonsdale Wall and kelp beds. And on the east side, we call it Nepean Wall. The Lonsdale Wall, I think, is by far the most interesting. When you get down 20 to 27 metres is the ideal depth. Yellow zoanthids everywhere. The diversity of invertebrate life is amazing. You've got fish that are bright, iridescent purple, which are called blue devilfish. They are just amazing fish. You've got banded sea perch, barracuda, cooter, not cooter. You get cooter up north, we get cooter down south.
Okay.
And it's a slack water dive, and that's why it's so protected, because it's not dived all the time. You can only dive it when you get the change of tide every 6.25 hours.
Okay.
So every 6.25 hours, you get about a 20 to 30 minute window to get in the water without current and do the dive.
That's why it's called the rip, because if you go at the wrong time, you'll get taken out.
Absolutely. And the currents down there run 6 to 8 knots.
Oh, yeah, you're not competing
So
against that.
if you get caught in a current, you're going to be whipped away from your dive site in no time.
So this is not for snorkelers either?
No, it's too deep for snorkelers.
So it's a bit of an advanced...
But you've got Pope's Eye up the road, which has got really good stuff. That's a rock annulus built in the 1880s. You can do a drift dive in my area where you do 2 kilometres in half an hour.
Wow.
That's a drift dive.
Yeah, that's good.
That's not a knife. No, that's a drift dive.
Yeah, that's right.
a drift dive.
Yeah.
But Lonsdale Wall, I would have to say, if I was tapped on the shoulder and said, if you've got one dive left... Now, it depends on the Cod Hole, of course, tomorrow.
Yeah, well, you can let us know after you've done that, all right?
I'll let you know, but I think I would go back there because the marine diversity there, the temperate water life is just amazing.
Sounds amazing. Well, you live in Victoria, so it sounds like you will get to dive it again before your days are up, hopefully many times. So,
Yeah, I hope so too.
okay, safe to say that we have covered a very comprehensive list of Australia's top dives. I think we didn't mention every single one of them, but if any listeners want to see that whole list and find out what they all are, and I know that, Steve, you do update them from time to time to keep them current, so people can be assured that when they go and check it, they're going to see sites that are still recommended. And so to sum up again, if you would like to enter the Australia's Great Dive Challenge, which Steve has founded, just go to 50greatdives.com and you can straight away sign up for updates, and then they'll let you know when it's time to sign up for 2026. Of course, if this podcast is staying online for a long time and you're listening to this in 2026 or beyond, hopefully the competition will still be going, so you can still check out the website and join in any time onto the next competition. And all you have to do after you sign up is log dives on any of the 50 greatest dives in Australia on the website, and even if you only do 1 or 2 of them, you still go in the draw to win amazing prizes. So you don't obviously need to do all 50 of them. That would probably be pretty impossible for most people's budgets.
Yeah.
But get involved, do a couple of dives off the list, or as many as you can, and part proceeds goes to the amazing Australian Marine Conservation Society to help with their efforts to protect all of these amazing ecosystems. And also it puts you in the draw for some amazing multi-$1,000s worth of prizes, including free dive trips to places like the Cod Hole and so on. So make sure you check it out at 50greatdives.com.
So
is there anything else that you want to sum up before we sign off?
Just one thing. If you are a late entry next year, you can back claim dives to the 1st of January 2026.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, come on, dive family that have been listening to this.
Yeah.
Come on, let's go.
Get amongst it.
Challenge among there.
Take the challenge.
Go for it.
Take the challenge. Yep. I feel really inspired because, like Steve said, one person won a $3,000 Cod Hole dive trip and they only did 3 of the dive sites. So you do go in the draw and have a chance to win. So even if you can only do a couple of the dives, make sure you get involved and support this amazing initiative and the good cause that it's supporting. So Steve Sinclair, marine biologist, dive instructor and founder of the Great Australian Dive Challenge. Thanks so much for all your amazing work.
Wow, what a chat.
Thank you for joining us on Word on the Reef today.
Thanks, Tanya. It's been great. Thanks, Brett.
You're very welcome. It's been lovely to have you. And we need to know your thoughts after you get back from the Cod Hole.
Yeah.
All right.
I will pass them on for sure.
Perfect. Sounds great.
And thanks to you, all our listeners, for joining us on Word on the Reef. I'm Tanya Murphy. My co-host is Brett Goodban, and we will be back next Friday at 10 a.m. with more awesome marine science adventures. So be sure to tune in, Cairns FM 89.1, to listen to the show live. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at instagram.com/Word on the Reef podcast. That's all for this week.
Yep.
Best fishes.
Safe diving.
See
Bye.
you next time.